the very first murder in all of human history. It was committed by a brother, against his own brother. That's the powerful and foundational story we're exploring today. Welcome to our series on the great stories from the Bible.
Hi everyone. This is a story that shows us some very harsh violence, but it also raises some really important questions.
Exactly. So the question we'll be asking is this: what does the story of Cain and Abel tell us about our choices, our fears, and our relationship with God?
Right. We're not just here to retell an ancient event. We're going to see how this story shines a light on human experiences that are still very real for us today.
First, let's set the scene. This story is from the first few chapters of the book of Genesis, right at the very beginning of everything.
That's right. Just before our story begins, Adam and Eve had been sent away from the Garden of Eden. So humanity is starting over in a new world, a world filled with hard work and challenges.
And in this new world, their first two sons are born. There's Cain, the older brother, who becomes a farmer. And then there's his younger brother, Abel, who becomes a shepherd.
So, the story starts with the very first family. They're settling in, working the land, and raising their flocks. It seems like a simple life, on the outside.
But a problem started with something they did for God. The two brothers decided to give God a gift. And this gift is what started all the trouble.
Okay, let's set the scene. At first, it was very simple. Cain offered some food from his garden, and Abel offered the best lambs from his flock.
And that's when things went wrong. The story says God was pleased with Abel's gift, but not with Cain's. We are never told why. And that's a very important part of the story.
Cain's reaction was quick and powerful. He felt anger, and he felt jealousy. His face looked very sad and stormy. He stewed in his bad feelings instead of trying to understand.
So we get to a really important moment. God speaks directly to Cain to warn him. He says something famous: if you don't do the right thing, trouble is waiting at your door. It wants to control you, but you must be its master.
But sadly, Cain didn't listen to this warning. He took his brother out into a field, and he killed him. The consequence was immediate and awful. A brother had destroyed their bond forever.
You can really see the opposites in this story. You have Abel's generous gift versus Cain's fear. You have God offering a conversation versus Cain choosing violence.
The most decisive moment is what God says to Cain, right before the murder. That one conversation gives the whole story its meaning.
Right then, Cain is about to become violent. He's so close to giving in to his jealousy. God shows him that he has a choice, that he can overcome this evil feeling. What he risks losing is his own humanity.
And what does Cain discover? He discovers that he is free, and that he's dealing with a God who talks with him, a God who warns him, and who doesn't abandon him to his anger, a God who trusts him to make the right choice.
What happens next is tragic. By refusing this conversation, Cain goes from jealousy to an act that can never be undone. He becomes the first murderer. He represents a broken bond.
And the consequences go way beyond his personal story. This is the moment that violence between family enters the world. The text says Abel's blood cries out from the ground. It's a wound for all of humanity, for all time.
So, this story reveals some fundamental things. It tells us about human responsibility and about freedom. But it also tells us about the nature of God.
On a human level, it's a deep dive into how jealousy works. Cain can't stand not being the favorite. And this desire to be noticed, when it isn't met, just eats him up inside.
On a spiritual level, it's fascinating. God isn't an unfair judge. He is a partner who is concerned, who gives a warning. And even after the crime, his mercy is there. He protects Cain by putting a mark on him so that no one will kill him.
And in the context of the whole Bible, this story is foundational. It raises the question of violence, of innocent blood. This theme will echo and find its resolution much later in the story of salvation.
That's why we shouldn't just say, God liked Abel's gift better. The story really wants us to look at how Cain reacted. The real sad part isn't that he messed up. It's that he refused to get back up and try again.
And that's how this story connects to our lives today. It's about our own choices, our tough times, and our fresh starts.
Everyone has felt jealous sometimes. You know, when you feel left out, or you think someone else is liked more than you are.
The story asks us to name that yucky feeling inside and make a choice. Are we going to let that bitterness grow? Or are we going to listen to the quiet voice inside that tells us to be the boss of that feeling and choose peace?
A simple thing you could do is to just say no to a jealous thought when it pops up. Or you could take a small step toward being friends with someone you're having a hard time with.
And of course, we really hope you'll read this story for yourself. It's in the book of Genesis, chapter 4. It's very short, but wow, there is so much packed inside.
So, to wrap it all up, the big idea to remember is this. The story of Cain and Abel reminds us that even in our weakest moments and our biggest decisions, a much bigger story is unfolding. And we always have a choice between hurting and talking.
Unfortunately, the violence that started in the world after this just got worse and worse. It leads to another great story from the beginning of time, which we'll talk about next time: the Great Flood and Noah's Ark.
To help us think about this, let's say a short prayer. Lord, please open our minds to your word. Through the story of Cain and Abel, help us recognize our own challenges. Help us welcome your call and move forward with more truth, trust, and faith. Amen.
And we'll leave you with a question to think about. What part of the story of Cain and Abel reminds you of your own life today?
Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss what's next. See you again soon.